I'm delighted to welcome to the show this afternoon Jem Ayres. And Jem, you're a life coach. Welcome to the programme.
Hi, Elaine. Yes, I'm a life coach, and currently I kind of specialise in coaching people with cancer because that was my own personal journey. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. So, cancer. Let's start with that as you've raised it. What cancer did you have, and what did you do to get over it?
Okay, so 2015, almost exactly 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with melanoma, advanced stage melanoma. So that's a skin cancer, and a tumour was found in my brain when I was travelling in Thailand, and I had brain surgery out there, and then I got back to the UK, and they discovered the tumours in my lungs and my lymph nodes as well, and I was just sent home and told that palliative care was the only real option, or the medication they were offering me would stabilise me at best. And I went home with this information knowing that actually that wasn't enough for me, being told that I just had to, spend time with my friends and family and to move to, a ground floor flat because I wouldn't be able to make the stairs for much longer. And none of that was giving me the will to fight, really. And actually, when a friend said to me, the first time someone said this phrase to me, which those of us in cancer are probably quite used to, she said, "You can beat this." And the word beat it was such a strong resonance through my body. I could actually feel that word beat rippling through me, not in a good way. And I just recognized that actually I didn't want to beat or fight. I was already exhausted. I was already recovering from brain surgery. I had to learn to walk again. My lungs had collapsed. My breathing was down by 30%. And in that moment, I just chose the opposite word to beat it. And I just said to her really quickly, I'm not going to beat it. I'm going to glide. And that was my mantra the whole way through cancer was, I'm going to glide through cancer. And every opportunity I had, I would make choices which were the easiest and most joyful for me. If it didn't fill me with joy, I didn't want to do it. And of course, I had feelings of fear around treatments and around struggling and around dying and around suffering, but I just made sure I had tools that I could use which would get me back onto a really positive track. So I would do yoga, meditation, chanting, dancing, hula hooping, all of these things that really just filled my body with joy, because I knew that the information that I had, which was I had cancer, was actually more damaging to me than the cancer itself, because I felt my body start to change the moment I heard the words, that it's palliative care only and advanced melanoma. And I knew that that wasn't the place that I could heal from. So I was always very aware with working with the subtle energies of my body. And I'd done this through yoga and through meditation and through Tantra. And it's just tuning in to the really subtle signals that our body gives us. And none of us, we don't really listen to these things anymore because the outside world is so overstimulating that all of the loud things outside of us are telling ourselves how we need to push our body or to work harder or to drive faster and to achieve more. Whereas actually, I think disease is out there to teach us that we have pushed too fast and we just need to really slow down. So I gave my business over to someone else to run, and I just stopped doing anything that wasn't healing myself. So I looked at my diet and I made massive changes around my nutrition there. I went vegan and gluten-free, but a bit more than that, I did an alkaline diet. So it's, seriously great superfood, nutritional, high nutrition, whole foods diet. And I juiced regularly and I did lots of supplementing, but mostly I just tried to keep my body and my mind in a really very relaxed state because I wanted to work with the nervous system. We're so used to pushing ourselves so hard that we're all just fried, and we're kind of used to tolerating a fast-paced way of life. And I really believe that's where disease can set in, when we've run ourselves down and when we've really dropped our life force and we're tired or we're stressed or we're just a little bit ill all of the time, but to the point where we don't even really notice it. So I just wanted my nervous system to drop into that place of rest and relaxation. And again, just finding ways of doing that, which supported me. And I did also do treatment as well. That's important to talk about. I did a treatment called immunotherapy, and I was only given a 10% chance of it working. And working meant stabilizing. At no point did they think that I would be cancer-free. No one thought I'd be cancer-free. I was told I would be on blood thinners for the rest of my life and all the medication for the rest of my life. After one round, 3 months of immunotherapy, I was cancer-free. So when I went back to the doctors and they said, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. I knew that it was more than their medication that had got me to this result.
Well, that's a pretty amazing story, Jem. And take my hat off to you. 2015, that must have been a pretty busy year, because that was the year I was also stage 4 cancer diagnosed as well. So what month were you?
Interesting. I've met a few people actually who were 2015 stage 4ers who have recovered. So yeah. It's obviously a trend.
I think there must have been some dust sprinkled in that year, and they've sprinkled it on toughies like us to come through it, so we can then teach other people what to do and how to avoid it, or if you've got it, how to get out of it. So
absolutely,
lots of points there that I've made notes on. So were you on holiday in Thailand, or did you live there?
I was traveling. I was traveling, and I'd gone on a yoga and a chanting retreat. And I'd had these headaches for about a month before, and I was constantly wearing sunglasses because everything was too bright. And I'd had these horrendous migraines, and I'd had a stroke as well. But the doctors just didn't really believe me, because I was 32 at the time, and I was fit and healthy, and I was a dancer, and I was always very positive. So yeah, I wasn't really making enough of a fuss. So they told me I probably had eye strain and I needed to get some new glasses. So I went and got some new glasses. And then after a few weeks, they told me it was a sinus infection. So they gave me some antibiotics. And I had booked this Thailand trip months and months and months before. And I went off to Thailand, and I wasn't really able to do yoga because I wasn't able to lift my head. And the noise of the chanting and the bells and the instruments was too loud for me. And I finally had a head massage and a Thai hot oil treatment on my third eye, which then led me to have a collapse, which then brought me into the hospital a few days later.
So did they know straight away what was wrong with you?
It was, well, I was still walking in there saying, I've got some sort of ear, nose and throat infection. It's a sinus infection. And they took me straight in to do a head scan, and they popped up and they said, you don't have a sinus infection, you have a problem in your brain. And those words really hit me. And when I saw the brain scan, it was a substantial tumour. And the surgeon said to me, he said, I don't really understand how you got here. And I said, well, just from the boat, the island next door. And he said, no, how long have you been in Thailand? Because you shouldn't have made the flight. You should have gone into a coma in the air with the tumour this size. But he said, any other surgeon would be rushing you into hospital, into surgery this moment. But because I can see you and see that you're walking and talking when you shouldn't be, we've got time to prepare your body. So they pumped me full of steroids and morphine to reduce the inflammation and to shrink any effects that maybe the surgery might have. So I had a few days to prepare for that.
So how come the optician didn't see? Because I understood that my understanding is that when you have an eye test, they can see things that are not right in your brain. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is a question I ask as well. I only found this out, that the optician could have seen it. I only found this out about probably a year later. But no, I don't know.
Unless it was particularly fast growing, I suppose. But even then,
I was told it was quite a slow grower, supposedly, and that it had been growing over a few years.
Wow, goodness me. So when you were traveling, so the fact that you were going out to Thailand for this yoga spiritual sort of thing, presumably you were already into the world of health and well-being, were you?
Yeah, I'd been doing yoga for about 2 or 3 years. I'd been doing Tantra for about 5 years. I'd been doing meditation for maybe a few years longer than that. So yeah, I'd always been into kind of alternative ways of seeing the world and health and, you know, the energy in our body. And I really think that was a gift for me, actually, because when I was in hospital and my lungs collapsed and I was recovering from brain surgery, when someone goes in your head and knocks around, actually, it's quite tough to recover. And I couldn't see properly, and I couldn't hear. Everything was too loud. Everything was too bright. I couldn't walk. I couldn't even lift my head for 3 days. I think this was the amount of steroids that I'd been put on. And I couldn't look at screens. I couldn't look at my phone and watch telly. Even everything, the world was too fast. And because suddenly breathing had become a real chore for me, all I could do, the only energy I had was to focus on my breath. So for me, that was like 3 weeks of meditation, isolated in a hospital in Thailand. I didn't have any of the usual distractions that we have. I didn't have friends and family flocking to my bedside, panicking. I didn't have any kind of fear from the outside world, really, because it was quite a beautiful experience, just staring outside of my window at the palm trees and the sun, just teaching myself how to breathe again, or teaching myself how to walk again. So for me, I think that was really good practice in meditation, so that by the time I did have the influx of friends and family's panic and fear, and doctors' fearful faces, and all of this information you can find out over the internet about cancer, by the time all of that started flooding into me, I was in a really calm and solid and sorted place, just through being with my breath.
That's really interesting, because all of the mentoring that I've done with people dealing with cancer, a big factor is friends and family that you mentioned that you didn't have to start with. So the fact that you were going through this on your own, I did exactly the same thing, actually. I cut everything off, everybody, and my job was to get well, and I cracked stage 4 in 14 weeks. So
Well done.
it's amazing what we can do when we put our mind to it, but we have to do it ourselves. It's not something that anybody can do for us or with us even. And sometimes, with the best will in the world, you know, the friends and family, they think they're helping, but all they're doing is just dumping their fear onto you, which then makes the situation worse, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The information out there, or the message out there about cancer, is all around fear and struggle. And at best, it's survival. And that's not even, you know, a great option, is it? So everyone's running around with this information that cancer looks a certain way, and people believe that they know how your story is going to, or your journey is going to navigate or maybe end up as soon as you say, I've got cancer. People still now say to me, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I always say, do you know what, don't. It was the most amazing experience of my life. So much learning and so much insights about myself. And I did have a core, solid network and community of friends who were at the end of the phone when I needed them. But again, because I was in Thailand, none of them were available till at least 3 in the afternoon. So I only had 3 or 4 hours of messaging, and that's even when I could look at my phone. And so I do think support is really, really important. But by the time I was back in the UK, I felt like I was my own project manager. Because people wanted to come around and make me tea or bring me cake. But actually, I wasn't eating cake or drinking tea anymore. So I really needed to recognise that I did need help and support, but I need to really be clear on what I was asking for. So I might say to people, my birthday's coming up, please don't buy me Prosecco and chocolates like last year. Please buy me root ginger and organic celery and veg boxes. And if you do want to come round my house, that's great, but I'm not going to be entertaining. If you come round, could you help me hoover? Or could you change my bedding? Or could you help me hang out my laundry? And I had a friend who created a rota for me so that any visits I did have, you know, it was really well structured, and I had lots of time and lots of peace and lots of rest, as well as support. And I think people need to know, because the story out there is someone's got cancer. We're all going to be very sad about it. Let's probably not mention the C word and not really talk about it. And she probably needs me to bring her cake. And actually, that was the exact opposite of what I needed in that time.
Exactly. There needs to be an awful lot of education. And a lot of people don't realise that cancer is pretty much in us all the time, every single living person. And it's our immune system. If our immune system is high and strong and resilient, we'll bat it away. It's
So
only
don't wait till it takes over your body to make
exactly.
changes in your life. So
Yeah,
many people are pushing themselves to the absolute limit with work or in relationships or with stress, with friends and family, or with food that they're eating, and no one's doing anything about it until they're really up against it. Same with me. I didn't have a particularly bad diet, but I was working too hard, but not in comparison of most, I don't think. But I know when I finally got my diagnosis, I only really told a handful of people. And I didn't tell anyone for about another 3 weeks, I think it was, because I needed to figure out what it meant for me and how I was going to go about it before other people started jumping in with their ideas and helpful suggestions, very good-willing people with their helpful suggestions. So I wanted to figure it out first. But obviously, because I've been in Thailand and there's been a lot of, Facebook and social media updates about me, people had started to know. So I put a video out on Facebook telling people what the diagnosis was, and that actually what I needed was their love, and I was going to overcome it with love. So not to turn up with, sad faces and cake, please. And I think that was a real turning point for people, because people could see that actually maybe I was going to do cancer a little bit differently. And the feedback I got from people, wow, I was just overwhelmed with messages of love and support, not only from friends and family, from complete strangers. And there really is a thing about being able to receive and know that we're worthy, actually. I think the unworthy bug that we all kind of have in one way or another, we're probably not good enough. This is what keeps us working too hard and trying too hard and not looking after ourselves and not prioritising our health. Is that we kind of feel that we're not really good enough. And that's totally fed by, industry and marketing and publicity. Buy this and look better, buy this and feel better. And actually, if we just take time to step outside of that and go, right, what's inside of me? And if I tune in, what is my body telling me I need, instead of the adverts that I see every day? And we start listening more to our body and its wisdom, then I think we really reach a deeper level of understanding about what our needs are, a more authentic, true level of what our needs are.
Absolutely. And it's interesting what you were saying about Facebook, because a lot of people say, oh, Facebook's addictive and this, that and the other, and social media, all the pressure, etc., etc. Use the darn thing to help you, which you did.
Yeah.
I did the same thing, because having so many contacts, you can't go through the energy drain of explaining
Ugh.
going on to so many different people. So just put one message out there, everybody gets it at the same time, and job done then, isn't it? You can carry on relaxing, gliding through.
Yeah, Facebook is completely addictive. The iPhone's completely addictive, and there are all so many different platforms now, Instagram and Twitter and everything else. But actually, that time in Thailand, it was my saving grace having my iPhone. So, even though now I'm trying to wean myself off it a little bit more, but it did mean that I could just put a message going out there going, thank you for all of your messages, keep them coming, but please don't be offended that I might not reply, because I need to look after myself, instead of replying to hundreds of messages with the same story, with the same information, kind of going around in the same rut and potentially having to fend off all the doom and gloom that people could be giving back in a very well-meaning way.
Yeah, exactly. And you also mentioned earlier on about the fact that you'd had surgery, and I think that's an important point to about as well, because of the there's a lot of people out there claiming that they have recovered from cancer completely naturally, but they've actually had surgery first and then done the natural thing, which is what many of us do. But don't claim you've fix yourself naturally if you've had what I call integrative. It's about taking the best, isn't it? Best of national health, or
for sure,
Thailand health, and then alongside that you do what you can naturally to boost everything.
For sure. I do a lot of talks. I talk at a lot of retreats, and people often share my website or my information and say, Jem Ayres healed herself naturally. And I get a bit upset, actually. It's like, no, one, I didn't, and I never say that. But also with people that I coach, because I coach people through cancer, and I never tell people what to do. I always say, whatever you feel like when you tune in is the right thing for you. And I know a lot of people really don't want to do chemo because of all the messages out there about chemo. But for some people, actually, the fear of not doing it is even greater. So I always
Indeed.
say, right, you know, choose what feels right for you, and then we will figure out how best to support you. Because there's so many different alternatives that you can do to support your body in preparation for surgery, in preparation for chemo, and in the aftermath and in the recovery as well. And it's like, let's just do it all. But if it's not right for you, that's fine too. But let's not try and push our ideas on people. I know when I first got diagnosed, you know, the fear and the overwhelm. Oh God, it was amazing. I had no idea what to do initially. And a friend, again, a very well-meaning friend, and she'd done a lot of research, probably seen people through chemo and all sorts. And she just messaged me and she gave me loads of information about natural alternatives. And she said, if it was me, I would never do chemo. And that was not a helpful bit of information for me, actually, in that moment, because it wasn't her, it was me. And when you're in that place, I don't think anyone can appreciate what is going on in your body and your mind when, you know, you're faced with a kind of end of life prognosis. And I kind of ignored all the rest of her information because of that. Actually, a few months later, her information was really, really valid and I could look at it again. But the fact that she was already telling me what I should and shouldn't be doing was creating a block for me. So I think it's really is figuring out what the individual needs and wants, and then putting your own beliefs on the shelf to support them in their journey.
A lot of individuals don't know what they want, though, because they don't know what's available. No. They're led by the nose, as I was initially, because when I had my stage 4 in 2015, that was my third cancer. I started my cancer journey 2009, and wow. I was led, you know, through the fear side of things. I had no experience. I didn't know anybody with cancer. My dad died of cancer years before, over 40 years ago, but that was a different sort of cancer that that was not relevant to my story. So I had no expertise, nobody to turn to, and basically I was frightened into having surgery, which now, with hindsight, which obviously we can't operate by hindsight, but we learn from it, I would not have had the surgery I had. So and so many people, in fact, recently a lady contacted me and she had exactly the same diagnosis that I had over 10 years ago, and the treatment is still identical, and she was hurried along and so on and so forth, and she's chosen a natural path. That's her way anyway. And so far so good. They can't believe how we're doing, etc. But I think all these things are sent to us as you know, these challenges in life, they come to us as a gift, as you say, and
absolutely
depending upon our approach and our mental resilience as well as our physical resilience. But I think it's more mental, isn't it? More mental resilience that gets us through.
When I first start coaching people, it's really great actually if people start working with me almost straight away when they're in that initial fear and overwhelm. Because when you've been in the cancer world for a little while and you've got the doctor's lingo down and you've been on that little treadmill and, like you say, the rush of, right, we need to do this, we need to try this, we need to get you on this trial or whatever it is, there is a real urgency, and that creates anxiety. And it could take quite a lot of time to kind of get someone away from that to be able to find clarity in themselves. But when I start working with people who really at the start in that fear and that overwhelm, that's when I feel I can really, really help, because then I can offer practical tools and breath work and meditation techniques and ways to tune in and listen to the body, like calm the crazy mind, because the crazy mind is what pays attention to everything out there. And if we pay too much attention to everything out there, all the conflicting views and contradictory evidence and all the stuff that Google tells us about all the different, you know, you should definitely drink this, you should never drink this, then, you know, we're only going to end up in confusion. And I really like to teach people to listen to their body, because I really believe our body knows best.
Absolutely. And also the concept that there's lots of healers out there. Well, I take the view that the only healer is the body. The body will heal itself if we provide it with the right environment. And
I always say this to people: I'm not a healer. I'm not a healer. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor in any way, shape or form. I've just been through it and I figured out what worked for me, and maybe some of that might be helpful information for you, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. We didn't all get cancer for the same reason. We haven't all got the same cancers. And the thing is, with the medical intervention, it kind of treats cancer, you know, as if we're all the same, but we're not. We're all individuals. So we really need to tune into, you know, what is there for us? Where did this actually come from? Where is the lesson to learn? What needs to change? And I know so many people who talk to me about when I make suggestions around changing their lifestyle or changing their diet, and it all seems like too much for them. And they kind of have it in their mind that, well, I only have to do this for 6 weeks or 6 months or till I get through chemo. And I'm like, no, we don't want to go back to that place you were when you had cancer take over your body. We kind of need to make some lasting changes in your mindset, if nowhere else. I remember when I overcame cancer, again, a very well-meaning friend got in touch with me and said, oh, thank Christ you can come off of that crazy diet of yours.
Mm-hmm.
I just looked and I was like, have you any idea what I've been through the last few months? Do you not see that the diet for me was a massive part, not only in nutritional change, but in mindset change, knowing that I was worthy to tailor my diet to suit me instead of just going along with what was being offered or what was the easiest accessible food that is out there in the world. The easiest and accessible food that's out there in the world is, you know, is not good, and it's takeaways, it's McDonald's, it's pre-packaged convenience foods to keep us, you know, in that fast pace of life, because we don't have time to cook, we don't have time to soak lentils, we don't have time to grow our own vegetables. So we're all just rushing and rushing, and it's not nutritionally dense. So for me, you know, diet change isn't just about the body and nutrition. It really is stating a fact about my health. My health is a priority, and I'm going to take time to cook my food really well, and I'm going to prepare it really well, and I'm going to spend some extra money on some really good quality organic produce for my body, because it's worth it.
The thing about cancer coming back time and time again, people that I have mentored or you know had conversations with, they'll get sorted, and then a year or so later they'll go, oh, can you help me again? So and so's come back. I said, what have you done? And they've done nothing. You know, how are you living? Well, they've gone back exactly as you say, gone back to that got them in the pickle in the first place. So it is a life change. And I've come out to Portugal now, and the first thing I did was found an organic farm.
Beautiful, yeah.
So I've got I've got everything I need. I was told that I wouldn't find this and I wouldn't find that, and I'm too fussy. The only thing I haven't found yet is organic red wine, but I'm on the case for that. Everything else is you know, as I was eating, you know, when I was in the UK. But also it's, you know, you're saying that people don't have time to prepare meals. It's a choice, isn't it? People do have time. They choose to spend it.
It's how we prioritise.
Indeed, they do.
I've been travelling for the last few months, so I haven't had a home base. So I'm not always with my juicer anymore, and I haven't done as much yoga. I used to yoga almost every day, and I've fallen out of really good habits. And it's like, okay, this is only a temporary thing for me, but what can I keep to keep me on track? And I have a little bag that I travel with, and I call it my self-love bag, and it's just a bag of supplements and bits that I have in the morning, which has ginger in so that I can have some fresh ginger tea, and it has some greens powder, which, you know, isn't ideal, but when you can't juice when you're on the road, it's a step in the right direction. And, you know, vitamin B12 spray and vitamin D spray, things to keep me, you know, operating and functioning mentally as I can. And just knowing that I have my breakfast sorted. I always travel with avocados, and I always kind of take my sprouting jar everywhere, so I can make some really great kind of probiotic, high protein sprouts as well. But if I really focus on my breakfast every day, I know that at the start of the day, when I first wake up, my body is taking in good things. And it's just setting an intention out there, which is, okay, the rest of the day, I'm going to be maybe a bit more relaxed and not so stressed about it. I know that I've had this time to get nutrients in. And yeah, people always talk about how tricky my diet is, or how difficult it is, or I'm never going to find what I need. I was staying at my friend's the other night, and it was 10 o'clock at night, and we hadn't really thought about eating because we'd been having too much fun. And he said to me, "What do you want to eat?" And I said, "Pizza." And he laughed at me. I never eat pizza. I don't even know where this came from. I said, I want gluten-free vegan pizza. And he laughed even harder. He went, "You're never going to find it." I got online, 7 minutes walk from his house. 7 minutes walk from his house. Gluten-free vegan pizza. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So do you know what? It is out there, and it's getting more and more out there. There are apps for me to find food. There are different websites for me to find food. I'm a massive foodie, so I'm not going to just be eating salad. I'm not going to be limiting my joy through my food. We're so lucky now where plant-based diet is really, it's taking over the world. And I know lots of people in cancer aren't doing a plant-based diet, and they're kind of going for organic meat and what have you, and that's great too. But I really, my thing is actually a majority of the plant-based diet really is the way forward for our health, our planet, the state of the planet, our future children, the animals. That's my vibe at the moment.
Yeah,
It feels good to eat living things, or things that are as fresh and as colourful as possible.
all it's doing, Jem, is going back to the way we used to live years and years ago, hundreds of years ago. And I can remember, my grandparents. I'm in my 60s now, but I'm not ancient. And I remember, there was no such thing as spraying all these crops and the hybrids and the GMOs and processed foods. It didn't exist. We had to buy I used to go to the shops every day, and we used to have to buy bread and groceries.
And people weren't eating meat 3 meals a day.
No, things weren't in packets. We had we had everything natural. So we're just going back to that, and that's within my lifetime. So it's almost like a fashion coming around again, but we now call it faddy things, veganism or whatever. But that's how people used to live. So there we go. I want to go back onto your diagnosis, because you said it was melanoma, which is skin cancer, but then you spoke about brain surgery. So square that one up for me.
So the tumours had travelled basically. So skin cancer, you usually get cancer through a mole, for example, and I'm a very moly person, but they never found the primary.
Right.
Okay, so they couldn't find any physical evidence, and they called it a tumour of unknown origin.
Right.
Okay. Them, wow. Okay. So if there's no physical cause, then it must be psychological. Don't worry, I've got this. And of course, the doctor just glazed over when I said that. But what happens then is the tumours, the cancer can travel through your blood and pop up anywhere in the body. And the brain was the largest one, and then I had smaller ones in my lung and my lymph node. So it was the brain one that was originally found, because that was the one that was causing the most chaos. That was what was giving me the dizziness and the collapse and the stroke.
Well, thank goodness it did, because if you hadn't have had that collapse, then it still would have been running right through your body, and who knows where it would have landed up. So
I'm so thankful for when I booked that head massage, because I said to the woman, I said to her, I've had these awful headaches for a month now, so this massage will either be kill or cure. And she giggled and went, cure, and it wasn't it? Because it was that massage that led me to my final collapse, which led me to end up getting taken to hospital.
I bet she thought she'd killed you. I bet it must have been frightening for her.
Oh, it wasn't until about half an hour later, when I was sat in the restaurant.
Phew.
I had to be carried back to my room. Yeah, absolutely. It was a very exciting experience, let's put it that way.
Okay. I've not met anybody in the cancer, who's got through cancer, that hasn't said, thank heavens I had it, what a gift, and how wonderful my life is now as a result. And
again, this is something, when I'm coaching people, it's like, right, let's step away from how awful your life is now that you have cancer, and what awful experiences you're having, and all of this fear and all of this anxiety, and let's start to look at what cancer is teaching you, and where we can be thankful, and what changes you are making in your life that are benefiting not only you, but they will benefit your children, your family, your community, wider society. Now let's look at what cancer is teaching us, how we can learn from it, and how we can move on into a better place from it.
Indeed. You also touched on the word Tantra before you went to Thailand. You said that you'd been practicing Tantra for a little while.
Yes.
And I know we've spoken before the interview about how this has helped you and perhaps other people in recovering from cancer. So without getting into any X-rated stuff, talk us
Yeah.
through the Tantra and how that relates to healing from cancer.
So lots of people think about Tantra as a religion. I prefer to think of it as a kind of a way of life. But what it is it's learning about your body and all of your body. And the areas where we have the most blocks or we don't want to learn or the most shame is in our sexuality. And actually, that's a massive part of learning, because if we've got any shame in anywhere, we're blocking some energetic flow through our system, whether we call it prana in yoga, or chi in Tai Chi, or Chinese medicine, or life force. These are ancient healing techniques which work on energetic flow through the body. In Tantra, they just kind of labeled it as sexual energy, but it's actually it's all the same thing. It's all energy. And when we block flow, that is where disease and ill health can creep in, because maybe we're blocking blood flow, maybe we're blocking energy, maybe we're blocking oxygen. It doesn't actually matter. And I work with sexuality now as a body worker and a sex coach. And I do also take some of these techniques into people who come to me through my cancer coaching as well, because it is about using our life force energy and raising it in our body so that we can just feel a lot more vibrant, a lot more alive. People in cancer want to feel a lot more alive? Because I know that there were definitely times when I didn't feel alive. I felt shut down, I felt depressed, I felt anxious, I didn't feel like I was living anymore. My body felt creaky and tight, I was in pain, I was in tears. Actually, if we've got techniques, and whatever they are for you, for me, tantric practices work, but there are other things that can work too, that can really just make our body buzz and sing and make us feel more alive. That has a greater benefit in everything that we do. That's a good place to build relationships from.
You mentioned about being a body worker. Talk us through that. What do you mean by body worker? Hello?
To me, and they say...
I lost you, Jem.
Can you hear me?
I can now, yes. I lost
Great.
you briefly. So
Okay.
I was asking about body
Yes.
worker.
So people often come to me because they have different ailments. Sometimes I get women who have got fertility or hormonal challenges. Sometimes I get people with depression. Sometimes I get people with sexual challenges, so either low libido or something along those lines. And what I do is I get them to tune into their body and work with what their body is telling us. And actually, when we just breathe and listen through the different techniques that I teach, we can hear a lot. And sometimes joy can come up, laughter from nowhere, sometimes tears, sometimes there's a lot of grief that we need to release. Because when we're holding on to things or suppressing parts of ourselves, that's not good. And so my bodywork technique is sometimes it's through touch and massage, sometimes it's through breath work and tuning in. Sometimes I do a really great, I call it a belly massage, but all it is hands on someone's belly, and they can breathe and they can feel, just tune into what their body's saying. So it can be incredibly slow and incredibly subtle, but so, so powerful. We don't have to do much for the body to rest. We're doing so much in our daily lives. We're always doing. We're in our doing active mode. Whereas actually, if we get more into being quieter and softer and slower and more receptive instead of doing, then we get to feel more. And that's when we start noticing what isn't good for us in our lives, which can ultimately lead to disease.
Absolutely. It's not one thing, is it? It's a whole variety. People can be taking the most wonderful nutrition and exercise and be mentally and think they're mentally okay and everything, but if their body has these emotional blockages from whatever source, and for most people it goes back years and years and years to childhood.
Yeah, I know. Okay. I've worked with quite a few women with breast cancer recently, and there's often a thing about breast cancer can be a cancer for people who are the overgivers, the people who give too much from the heart. And so there are some great tantric practices around boundaries And so I can work with people like that. So actually, how do you start saying no more? If you're starting saying no to give in to others, which we're not taught to do because it sounds incredibly selfish, actually, when we start saying no to other things, we're saying yes to ourselves more often. So there are exercises that we can look at. Where is the cancer in the body? What does that relate to in our lives? Where are we pushing ourselves too hard? And what exercises and techniques can we learn or can I offer that can help people make changes in that area of their life?
Self-care isn't selfish, is it? There's this
Oh,
misunderstanding that it's
gosh,
about putting your own oxygen mask on first.
absolutely. If you're looking after yourself first, you have more to give. When we give and we give and we give, we just get depleted unless we're filling ourselves up as well.
Touching on breast cancer, the other
Yes.
area that's very common with people having breast cancer is some kind of bereavement or sudden stress. If something, it's very often bereavement, or as you say, with giving too much, for years and years, and then it builds up. But I've come across many cases of grief, and particularly with sudden bereavement. And
it's all about the heart, breast cancer. It's all about the heart and the shock of the heart.
Yeah.
Mine, because I think, mine was the skin cancer, but I think because my tumour that was most, the largest was the brain tumour. For me, that's more to do with head and psychological stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of head stress and emotional stress from a previous relationship, which had turned into quite a lot of psychologically unhealthy, relationship. And I know that for me, that was where my biggest healing was, actually, not only in learning to open my heart and to receive, but also into stepping into clearing my mind so that I wasn't in that crazy little, world that our mind can let us get into.
Yeah, it's great that you recognised that and did something about it. Fantastic. So I asked guests to choose 2 songs, and you've chosen one that's on my list, my personal list, Three Little Birds, Bob Marley. Why did you choose this one?
Oh, so I was always aware of words and how powerful words can be in our psyche. And I just knew that when I listened to my body, everything else outside was telling me death, disease, suffering, cancer, awful, bad, bad, bad. And if I listened to those words a bit too much, that wasn't going to be helpful. So I needed to figure out what the words were for me. And if I tuned into my body just very quietly said, "You're going to be fine." And it wasn't like, "You're going to be great." It was just, "You're going to be fine." And Bob Marley just came to me because it's just, don't worry. Every little thing is going to be all right. I was like, oh, yeah, there we go. This is just a little thing. One day, this is going to be a little thing to me. Even though right now it's my massive whole world has caved in. One day, it's just going to be a little thing. Don't worry. Because right now, I'm breathing and I'm seeing and I've started walking again. And actually, I'm okay right now. Let's not worry about what happens in a week or a month or 6 months' time.
Exactly. So many people.
And who doesn't love a bit of Bob Marley?
Exactly. Fantastic. Real feel-good music. And people do stress themselves out over stuff that's never likely to happen anyway.
Indeed.
I've actually, tragically, I have seen many people literally kill themselves with worry. They're so fearful that, and even when they've got through and they've got, they're in remission or no evidence of disease, whatever description the medics give, they're then living in fear that it's going to come back. And
that's the next challenge, isn't it? Basically, I've overcome cancer now. Now, how the hell do I live the rest of my life? Being able to be in this knowledge that potentially it might come back, because that's what we're told, is that cancer will get you the second or the third time, or that it will keep coming back.
Well, I've had 4 different versions of cancer, and
excellent. You're a good person to know.
And they're all just different, and the darn thing's not going to get me, that's for sure, because
Indeed.
after myself, etc. However, each one has taught me different things that I've been able to pass on then to other people. Again, it goes back to the gift. And I've never had a day's illness, even though I've had all these different things I've gone through. To me, it's just been an inconvenience, not an illness. It's an inconvenience.
Yeah. Do you know what? That's what I thought of it. I thought it's just like a really bad flu. You know, I'm not going to be able to get out of bed for a while. I might be a bit tireder than usual, and it's going to take me a little while to get over. But it's just one little drop in a massive ocean of my life.
Exactly. Good for you. The other song, Beatles, All I Need Is Love, which I don't think needs a great deal of explanation, but go on, give us some words around that song.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say, really? So yeah, I think I was just really opening up to love and help and support. And I don't think I'd ever really allowed myself. I'd always been a fiercely independent woman and, you know, wore the badge of pride, which actually meant I was exhausting myself. And I was just trying to do everything on my own, be massively successful. And I was doing really well until cancer hit me. I didn't have time for cancer in my life. It was a massive inconvenience. But actually, it was the lesson that went, you need to stop doing this right now because it's not healthy. And so when cancer finally came, I just opened up to people and said, right, I'm going to need some help here. And for me, music, as I said, words, music and vibration is really important to our mindset and to our healing. So every day I would listen to my healing playlist with these songs on. And even the medication that I was using. So when I was injecting blood thinners into my belly every morning, and whenever I went to the chemo ward for my immunotherapy, I would play music to my medication before it went into my body so that I could infuse it with love. And I would do the same in my breakfast in the morning and with my juice as well. You know, I'd always be playing lots of kind of devotional chanting and love music and Bob Marley, so that making sure that vibrationally what I was putting into my body was going to be, you know, of love. We fed so much negative information out there. So I tried to cut that out as much as possible. You know, I didn't own a telly, but I wasn't watching anything on the screen, and only really using Facebook for my advantage. I wasn't reading the news. I have no idea what happened at the end of 2015. I'm sure if something politically important was going on, someone should have told me, but it obviously wasn't important. And it was just really being aware that words and the information I was taking in was so important for my stress levels and my healing. They've done loads of experiments about this. They put two plants in a school, two of the same plants, both get fed and watered the same, but one plant the children are encouraged to give loving words to, and one plant the children are encouraged to bully. And of course, one plant wilts, one plant flourishes. And I don't need to tell you which one that is. They do the same with rice. They cook rice and they put it in 3 containers. And rice just contains water, basically. It's just their little water pockets. And one rice you shout and scream at for 15 minutes a day. One lot of rice you give loving words to. And then you've got the middle rice, which is your neutral, your tester. So you just leave it. And of course, what happens is the middle rice over time goes moldy because it's rice. But the rice that has been loved and given love, its decaying is delayed. And the rice that is given the shouting and the swearing molds quicker. There's Dr. Emoji, who's a Japanese scientist who took water particles, again, from positive and from negative words, and looked at them under a microscope. And the ones that had been put into rooms full of devotional chants or children laughing or beautiful love songs, that underneath the microscope, on a molecular level, they had changed to be the most beautiful snowflakes, whereas the ones that had negative words given to them or swearing or shouting had mutated, and it wasn't the kind of water that you would want in your body. And our body is 85% water, and our cells are about 95% water. And if cancer is just a cell which has mutated, I want to make sure that only positive water is going into my body through my food and through anything that I drink. But also, I believe we have the power to change that water in our body.
Water is so powerful. Emoto's work was amazing. Sadly, he died a couple of years ago, but his work was really quite stunning. And playing rock music versus playing soothing, calming music. It's amazing what happens. And picking up on the water you mentioned, so many people can just help themselves by drinking, hydrating with quality water.
Dehydration is massive, and it's free. It's free and it's available. And let's just all drink more water. It would help our brain a lot more. It would help our tissues and our cells and our health a lot more. It will help our nervous system a lot more. And because it's so easy and so obvious, we kind of ignore it. People often get hold of me and ask me about supplements and where should they get the greens powder and should they really buy a 300-pound juicer? And I can definitely, give suggestions around this, but one of the first things I say is, like, how is your water intake? Because if you're really going to be serious about your health, let's strip it right back to the basics first.
On the water theme again, I became the UK distributor for something called the Power Tube, which is a vibrational device which it's classed as a TENS machine, but it actually isn't a TENS machine. But that's the nearest description.
Yeah.
It works on a different frequency to TENS, and it's kind of 2 metal rods joined by a lead, and you just simply hold it. You program it to go on for so many minutes, and it works. It dedicates its life, so to speak, to the water molecule. So it fixes and repositions the water molecule in our body. And that was
amazing.
My healing strategy when I had stage 4 in 2015.
And amazing.
A number of people who I've mentored through have used power tubes to keep them going and to help on the healing front. So yeah, water is so important.
Yeah. And people always say to me, how do you know if this stuff works? Because obviously a lot happens in our body that we don't see. And I just say, the power of the mind is so amazing. Do what you believe in. There's been placebo experiments all over. If you believe 100% that the sugar pill or whatever you're doing is going to work, it's far more likely to work than something that you're taking which you do not have any faith in.
Yeah, and that is so important. The power of prayer as well for people who have faith is really quite profound. Okay, so we're going to play those 2 songs for you, Three Little Birds, Bob Marley, and Beatles, All I Need Is Love. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you this
Elaine.
afternoon, Jem. So tell listeners how they can get hold of you if they want to know more or perhaps consult with you on any health matters.
Thanks, Elaine. So I've got 2 websites. I've got Jem's Cancer Coaching, and it's Jem with a J, JEMS, Cancer Coaching, all one word, .co.uk. And then also my Bodywork and Sex Coaching website, which I also work with people with cancer through, is gemayres.co.uk. So I'll spell that JEMAYRES.co.uk. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
I hope that was helpful for someone. Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, thank you.